everyone, and welcome to another Searching for Players podcast. This is going to be our E3 2018 wrap-up. We're going to talk about... yes, Alex is rapping for us. As always, I'm David, Player 1. Joining me as almost always is Alex, Player 3. And yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to try to cover a lot of the other news surrounding E3 that we have not talked about. So we're not really going to get into Xbox or PlayStation too much because we already did a deep dive onto those. So if you missed those, you can check it out. There's probably links somewhere above us that you can go check out those two episodes. But let's just jump in. Let's talk about it. So, let's start with overall impressions of E3 this year. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? Yeah.
I mean, we saw some neat stuff. There were some cool announcements. We saw, a little bit of gameplay. But it's, I feel like a lot of the stuff that we'd seen that, we typically would have been excited for, we already knew they were coming. Or, Canada, Walmart leaked them already. So we kind of had an idea, and maybe it's funny things I was probably more interested in seeing, we didn't see.
Right. Splinter
Cell, Mortal Kombat, to name a few.
Right.
So I thought it was okay.
I kind of feel the same way. I think it was a solid E3, but there weren't any huge surprises, real, oh my god moments. Some of the coolest stuff we saw were either for things that have been previously announced or teased, or that we were pretty sure were on the way. We got the Devil May Cry trailer, we got the Resident Evil 2 trailer, things like that. And like you said, there were some sort of disappointment, no Mortal Kombat, no what Rocksteady's working on, Superman, whatever. There were a few things kind of, we're hoping to hear maybe a new Splinter Cell, we can get that, stuff like that. Like
nothing on Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Right.
Some of the things,
right,
Fable, Perfect Dark was rumored. There were all sorts of things that it was kind of standard, like what you would expect is kind of what we got.
Right. I would say probably one of the biggest, oh dang moments was like the Battletoads announcement, which was at the Microsoft press conference, which we talked about.
Sure.
But that one, that was that's a hope and dream type thing. But again, it was just a teaser.
Correct.
They didn't really show anything. They didn't tell us much, but they're working on it, so that's cool.
For me, it was Sekiro from Software.
Right.
And probably Resident Evil 2. We're both like, those are really neat.
Which both of those we knew they were being made.
Correct.
Although we didn't know what Sekiro was yet. We just knew that From Software was working on something. So the very first conference was the EA conference. And I think in a lot of ways the EA conference matches our overall opinion of E3.
Yes.
It wasn't a great conference. They didn't really announce anything huge. They talked about Battlefield 5, which they already had a separate event for. They talked about FIFA, a couple different EA programs. One thing, and this was sort of a mixed bag for me. They did announce their next big Star Wars game. They had the Vince Zampella, the head from Respawn, was there, but they had him in the crowd. I just forgot the girl's name, but the girl who kind of hosted the whole thing, she did a pretty good job, I think. But she sat down with him, and they basically just talked about their game and said it's going to be called The Jedi Fallen Order, and it takes place between episodes 3 and 4.
Sure. And
then it's holiday of next year. And that was it. So it was cool. We got some information, but they didn't show us anything.
Yeah.
Not a teaser.
Well, I feel like that was a lot with a lot of things.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, I guess. All right. They could have just left that out, to be honest. But,
yes.
Because I would feel the EA conference overall, it didn't flow great. It had some weird interruptions. Like, they didn't talk a lot about Madden, but they talked a lot about this one guy who had been playing the Madden competitively and like worked his way up and finally won last year. And they had, I just forgot his name, one of the Steelers wide receivers there talking with him. It felt totally unnecessary. But they talked about Battlefront 2, and we talked about whether or not they were going to apologize for things. All I think they really said was that it got off to a rough start.
Yeah.
And then they talked about what they're doing going forward, new content and stuff like that, new characters.
For EA, like I said, for me, the big things, it was, Battlefield 5 and Anthem. So,
right.
And we saw more stuff, like Anthem may be a little bit more of a different game than we thought. But at the end of the day, for EA's sake, I hope those two games sell well.
Yeah.
Because they've chunking a lot of money in those two games.
I mean, Battlefield, that comes out this year, and I think it'll do fine. Anthem comes out February 22nd.
Next year.
Right. And to be honest, I'm more interested in it now than I was before.
Yes.
They did show more. They showed gameplay. They gave more details. They talked about, it's single player when you're kind of at your base doing missions and things, and then it becomes multiplayer when you go out. Your friends join you.
It's like an open world, shared world, if you will.
Right. So I think that's cool. They talked a little more about some of the mech thing, not mechs, but the suits you wear, which are called javelins, I think.
I believe so.
So anyways, it definitely had, they specifically said no loot boxes, no pay to win. There will be cosmetics you can purchase, but you'll see what you're buying. It's not a random look at this.
So what was the next? The next that was that, of course, was...
Well, and the only other thing I wanted to mention about EA was the one thing that I liked the most. They talked about Unravel 2. They talked about their indie games.
Yes.
And they showed Unravel 2. It's co-op. They played it on stage, and then they said, and it's out now. Which I
that is
cool.
nice.
So
that was
my favorite part of that conference. But overall, I would say it didn't flow well. There weren't any big announcements. You had some of those awkward developer moments where they were putting people on stage that don't normally talk to the crowds and stuff.
You could tell.
So then, of course, we had the Xbox conference. We already talked about that. So then that night was the Bethesda conference. So that was the next big one.
Sure.
Again, this was a better conference than EA.
Yes.
I will say, just straight up, there was a lot of that awkwardness again. Some of these developers, having some issues on stage. I felt like it flowed a little weird. They came out. What was his name? Pete Hines.
Yes.
I do like him. I think he's well spoken. He came out. He took some shots at Walmart because they revealed, Prey 2 beforehand.
Yes.
I think he said Walmart, where you can go for low prices and trust to keep secrets or something.
Yeah. Well, it was Rage 2.
Right. Is that what I said?
You said Prey 2.
I was saying Prey 2. Wow.
I've done it. I did it last time.
Yeah. So Rage 2. Sorry.
Rage 2. Yes.
And then it got weird because they brought Andrew WK on stage and he did an entire 4-minute long live performance of one of his songs that's being featured in Rage 2.
Yeah.
I guess that was cool if you're there, but just watching it, I was like,
you're like, oh, okay.
But overall, they showed a lot. They had Rage 2. They showed gameplay. They talked about their Elder Scrolls Legends card game. They talked about some Elder Scrolls Online stuff.
I mean, you got, of course, Elder Scrolls 6.
Right. They ended by revealing Elder Scrolls 6, but they already said it's so far in development.
Yeah.
It looks like it's probably going to be a next-gen game.
They
haven't officially said that, but because their other big teaser announcement at the end, they talked about Starlink, which is supposedly like a big space RPG exploration game, and they said that's a ways off, and Elder Scrolls is coming after that.
Correct.
So it'll be a while. The interesting thing was Starfield. They said it's their first new IP at Bethesda in 25 years.
It's crazy.
Everything they've done has existed, because Wolfenstein, Doom, Elder Scrolls, they've all been around a long time. Yeah. Fallout, all that's been around. So, but they didn't show much of that either, just a little teaser.
Yeah.
And that was it. They did...
well, they actually showed gameplay of Fallout 76. We got to see some of that.
That was the big thing. They focused on Fallout 76 a lot. They showed trailers, which we'd already seen the trailer at Microsoft's press conference. But they showed a lot of gameplay. They broke down a lot of information. Todd Howard was out there talking. I always like him. He's got a good presence on stage, good flow. He's probably the best presenter up there. The whole thing. But they showed a lot. Talked about it's going to be entirely online. Other characters are actually people you'll be playing with. You can play by yourself.
Yes.
But obviously it's going to be made to play with other people.
Get more of a shared world.
Right. You can work together. You can build bases. I guess the big thing is they're adding nuke silos on the map.
Okay.
Where you'll be able to team up with other people, and as you play, you might find keys, but you got to work with other people to get all the keys, to get the combos, to get into a nuke silo. So it'll take a lot of work to get them. But then you can nuke your, rival faction's base or something and just obliterate it. So
interesting.
Yeah, that could be a big game changer type situation. And I guess after you nuke an area, there'll be these valuable resources you can go and get, but there'll also be these new mutated creatures in the nuked area. So it actually creates.
See, that's one I'm still a little bit on the fence on, because I've liked the other ones, I love Fallout 4 is really, really good.
Right.
But this one's a little bit different.
I think it's going to feel a lot different than other Fallout games.
Yes.
It's more of a survival type game than
the other ones were very much single player experience.
Right, single player RPG. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So this one's it's all story driven and consequence driven as you went through the story. So it'll be interesting.
Right. And I would say their two biggest announcements besides those teasers for Elder Scrolls 6, the Wolfenstein Youngblood expansion, coming out. It's coming to Switch as well. And I'll say a lot of games announced at E3 all said coming to Switch.
Which is nice.
Bethesda was big on that. EA was pretty big on that. It was, I think, Ubisoft was really big on that. So a lot of them, supporting Switch, which is great. But yeah, Wolfenstein, you play as BJ's twin daughters. It takes place in like an 80s Paris setting.
Okay. That'd be interesting.
And then Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
They didn't show anything. They announced it.
They showed a trailer, but
it was like a teaser type trailer. No,
Correct.
not really gameplay-ish.
Right.
And they said it's Hell on Earth, so like the demons are coming to Earth. And QuakeCon in August is where they're going to do the big reveal, the gameplay reveal of that.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
Which is here in Texas.
Awesome.
And then they talked about Prey DLC and some other stuff. Overall, like I said, the Bethesda Conference was good because they gave us a lot. They showed a lot. They had some cool announcements, some things we expected. Some of the presenters were funny, but then there was a bit of an awkward flow.
Yeah.
Some developers were kind of awkward. Jokes fell flat a lot. And like I said, that weird opening, just going right into like a concert thing for a little while was kind of odd. So, and granted, it may have been more impactful if Rage 2 hadn't leaked.
Correct.
Because they may have played that music and you're like, oh, what is this for? And then, the Rage 2 stuff would have come up or whatever. But since it already leaked.
And I feel like that was a lot of this year. I mean, as we touched upon, like,
right.
For me, we knew a Doom was coming. And we knew Rage 2 obviously was going to be there. So, like, those are the two that I was probably most excited about.
Right.
But again, like, the trailer looked neat, but we have no idea when Doom Eternal's coming out. And, when you're going to see it.
This is the first year. This is something I used to like about Bethesda. Everything they would talk about and announce was within the same year.
Correct.
This is the first year. I mean, I started right off with Rage 2, which comes out in
2019.
Yeah, I think spring of 19. So right away, they're already like, we're talking about games that are not coming out.
Correct. Well, and that tells you too. I mean, let's face it. Like, their next big game is Fallout 76, and then after that's Rage 2. Everything else, your Doom Eternal, your Starlink, your your next Elder Scrolls are years away. Not like a year, like 2020, as you mentioned. Like, are those even going to realistically be?
I think that's why they talked
year.
About things like Elder Scrolls Legends, because that's out and they're adding to it. Elder Scrolls Online, they're adding to it. Even the Prey DLC, that'll be this year. They're adding to an existing game.
What's scary though, and this is the thing I'm kind of going, wow. If you think about it, we can realistically go a console generation without a new Oblivion. I mean, I know they ported Skyrim from the 360 and PS3 over to next gen consoles, but by the time the next legit installment of Elder Scrolls comes out, it may be on an Xbox 2, PS5.
Right.
So
yeah, it probably could be. Probably
interesting.
Will be, I think, if it's that far out the way they announced it.
Yeah.
And they also talked about they're still supporting like mobile, which is cool, and VR.
Gotcha.
VR did get some love from some people. Obviously, we saw it at Sony, but Bethesda and I think it's Ubisoft maybe had some VR stuff. I don't remember, but yeah,
we'll get
to there was some VR stuff. But so then the next day, the next big conference was the Square Enix.
Yes.
Which was actually a video. They did almost the Nintendo style, where it was like a video was released, and it was. I think it was 29 minutes.
It was like a Square Enix Clubhouse instead of like a Nintendo Treehouse.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Because the Nintendo Directs come out every couple months or whatever it is. Which I'll just say from the start, I liked a lot better because the last time Square had a conference, it felt really awkward. A lot of just talking and stuff over concept art and things. This flowed much better. It was much tighter. I think it was Yosuke Matsuda came out. He talked about we're going to show you titles for 2018 and beyond. He also said stay tuned till the end. So then, we'll come back to that. So then it opened up with a trailer for Tomb Raider, which we already seen some stuff for. They showed some gameplay and everything. Looked like more Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. Like, if you were a fan of the last two, you're going to be a fan of this one.
Right. A little bit of Final Fantasy 15, the big thing there, a Monster Hunter crossover.
Right. Yep.
Which I found out later, it will be in both games.
Okay.
There will be some Final Fantasy stuff in Monster Hunter and some Monster Hunter.
That's kind of cool that they do that. Gives you a reason to go back into it, right?
Right. So, Captain Spirit, which I think we may have talked about before because they showed.
We did. We talked about that in the Xbox Conference. Yes.
Basically,
prelude to
Life is Strange 2 comes out next week, June 26th, and it's free.
Correct.
So that's cool. They did talk about Dragon Quest 11, which I know we're both excited for.
Yeah, that was one. It was funny. That's probably one of the big games I was really looking forward to. I mean, the last one I really played a lot was Dragon Quest 8 on PS2 back in the day, and loved it. All-time classic. So I'm really looking forward to kind of getting into that type of game. And from everything I've seen, just it looks gorgeous, looks beautiful. I've heard that,
it's just September 4th.
Yes, it's just fun.
Yeah.
So that's definitely day one for me.
Full English trailer for it.
Yes.
My thing too, they also announced a collector's edition available only through Square Enix's website. Everything that's in it is what I like.
Oh no, it hit the 4 points, and you were just like,
Yeah, well, the 3 points,
Yeah.
the hard book, the steel book, the art book, and the soundtrack. And
yeah.
they're nice art book, nice soundtrack, and it comes with like a nice cloth map, which is always cool.
Yeah.
But it's $150.
Did you have to smoke a cigarette after you saw it?
Yeah.
You were just like,
Well, I just sat there. I was like,
Ooh.
I still haven't pre-ordered it because I feel like $150 is just a little.
if you want David to
too
pre-order it,
high. Like and subscribe.
yes, put it in the comments
If
now.
this video gets 100 likes, I'm getting it. They did have some new IPs. They talked about a game called Babylon's Fall, which I say that right.
Okay.
It's coming to PS4 and Steam. All it was a teaser. The interesting thing was it had this whole like hand-drawn timeline of all these different events. So they've already done like a deep dive into lore on this game. So I don't know what kind of game it is. They didn't really talk about it too much. They did show two knights fighting. One appeared to have some sort of magic powers or something. The interesting thing is Platinum is making it. Square is publishing it.
Gotcha.
So it's probably going to be like an action type game. And then they also talked about a game called Quiet Man.
Okay.
Not that interested. It's a new IP. It was like the trailer was this weird live action thing where this guy walks down an alley and these sort of gang looking guys tell him to leave and he like points to his ear and it's like he's deaf or something. And then it switches to CG and he like beats them up and then it goes back to live action at the very end. Didn't really talk about the game, beyond that was it. Just a teaser.
Yeah, you have no idea what is this going to be. It's more of it's here, but realistically,
new IPs are always cool. So
yeah.
Other than that, they had the same Nier Automata trailer they had at the Xbox. Just Cause 4, they showed some more, and then Kingdom Hearts 3, they showed some more. Nothing real new in any of those.
Sure.
And that was it. And that's where everybody was like,
But
it ended with Kingdom Hearts 3, nothing huge. But the guy at the very beginning said, make sure you stay tuned till the end. But there was nothing. There was no like big announcement or little thing at the end. So
that was Kingdom Hearts 3. That was the news.
Yeah, and the trailer was really just a variation of what we saw at the Xbox press conference. They showed a few extra things, but it was basically the same trailer.
Yeah.
So it was weird. And
so maybe they cut something at the end. Maybe they had,
Maybe there were plans, and that's why, like I said, I liked this one because it did move. They showed, some decent stuff, gameplay, a couple new IPs.
You mean you didn't have some of those like awkward pauses and like cutouts
to like away, so
to the like the
audience.
Conference and the audience? Sony, you didn't have any of that.
No, so that was good, but people were expecting more out of this. I know I was. There was no, they're working on some Avengers game.
Well, yet again, add that to the list of games that we hadn't heard of. So.
And then we talked about Final Fantasy VII Remake. No glimpse of it here. So it was a little disappointing. I guess people were wanting a little more out of this, and we just didn't get it.
Yeah.
I think we were expecting more because they haven't done one in 3 years. So we're like, they got a lot of stuff to talk about, and they talked about some decent stuff, but.
Correct.
Yeah. So, anyway, so this was followed by the big Ubisoft Conference.
Yep.
Like I said in our preview episode, you always know what to expect with these. It was pretty much that. It opened with the Just Dance routine. That's their thing. They always have that. I guess the big thing, Beyond Good and Evil 2, they showed more.
Another
We
trailer.
weren't sure. They showed us a whole other CG trailer.
Showed a little bit of gameplay, which was like...
Yeah, actually showed some gameplay, which looked cool. And then they had this whole thing with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where his company, what's it called?
Well, it's his production company.
Hit Record, yeah. They're adding assets and things, so fans can create stuff, and then it may make it into the game and things like that. So that's kind of cool.
No, but they didn't give a release date, though, so we still don't know when.
No real information, other than they did say it'll be like an open world action RPG, and apparently you can play co-op if you want. So
that's
some of that
interesting.
information's in there, yeah. And they did show Paige and Jade, both of which who were in the original game.
Yeah.
So they're in this one. Then there's some, they talked about like some Trials Rising as a new Trials game coming out, some more Division 2. The big thing they announced about Division 2, if you're a Division fan, 8-player raids, which I guess is it's a big thing. People like that, helps extend that game content.
And there's kind of that in-game content that was kind of lacking with the first one. So
it's
good.
They've already announced 3 DLC episodes, which will all be free. So everybody
which is nice.
Yeah. So I think they're definitely trying to keep this game, the player base, going longer than
because the first one was fun, but that was the thing. It kind of dropped off, and that's kind of the challenge with those games is having continuous content to keep you going because every month something else is coming out. So
Then they had a musical routine for Mario Rabbids game, the strategy game.
Yes.
Because of the big
Mario
Donkey
plus
Kong.
Rabbids.
Yeah, so the big Donkey Kong expansion's coming out.
Which we knew was coming.
Right.
Yeah.
They showed a little more of Skull and Bones. It looked good.
Still, does there a release date on that one?
I don't think so. I didn't write it down, and I tried to write them down if they did. So, but it looked good.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's...
Like I said, that one still has my attention more than Sea of Thieves ever did. So that's just me. But they did talk about Starlink more. The big thing there, I guess Ubisoft and Nintendo really have this great relationship. Star Fox will be in Starlink.
Which is kind of neat.
Which Starlink is their Toys to Life game where you like build the ship and then the ship appears in the game.
Yep.
And like the trailer actually had a lot more story than had previously believed there would be. Like it looked better to me than I thought. I still don't have a strong interest in trying to build a toy ship.
Sure.
But the game itself looked cool, and the fact that it's Star Fox, which will be exclusive to the Switch version. So, For Honor, that's one of those games I always wanted to get into, never did. They just announced a new faction.
Yeah, they're keeping it going.
They are, and it's like a Chinese faction called the Wulin, and it's 4 new warriors. It looks really cool. I might think about getting into it, so we'll see. I don't know.
You should.
I remember playing the beta way back and loving it. I just never got into it when it came out. So.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the big announcement, which again was leaked beforehand, but Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Correct.
Takes place in ancient Greece, in Rome. They revealed the game. It looks gorgeous. They showed a lot of gameplay. They revealed facts about it. It's going to be have more RPG elements than ever before. You can play as a man or a woman. You choose at the beginning. It won't be like Syndicate where there's 2 characters. You just choose one or the other at the beginning.
Sure.
Dialogue. So like
there's dialogue options now.
Yeah, you can have conversations and choose your responses and things. Also, big battles.
Yeah.
They showed one because the backdrop, I guess, is going to be the Spartans at the war with the Athens or whatever. I think it was Athens, and so there'll be parts where you take place in these large-scale battles. We saw one that took place. It looked like on a beach.
Okay.
And you're running around, and they're.
But I know there's ship combat again.
Yes, there's also ships and things. There's a lot going on in this game.
I mean, to your point, it looks good. It looks neat, but then that's, it's kind of one of those things. Like, I still have Assassin's Creed fatigue.
Right.
Because the last one said Egypt was really really good, but it's like yet again. I mean, it looks good. It does look good. It's just there's so many other games that come out along that time.
Right.
Like that they need to start release Assassins in July.
Right. I know.
Like,
this summer they need more releases.
That would be
summer.
the perfect time.
Right.
But it was good. It was good. I mean, it looks good. I like the setting was pretty cool.
Right.
There's a lot to go off.
I'm not sure if this
period.
takes place before Origins, like if ancient Greece is before ancient Egypt or at the same time.
It would have been ancient Egypt, I believe.
See, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think
some people
Egypt.
said it took place before, so I don't know if that's right. I don't know. That was unofficial. That was just
we'll
what I was
find
reading.
out.
Yeah, we will. But because I want to know how much of the assassin storyline plays into it.
Correct.
But,
yeah.
So overall, I felt like the Ubisoft Conference was one of the better ones. They revealed a lot. They talked about supporting existing games, new games. They teased us with some things. Talked about stuff for this year, next year, and for the most part, it flowed pretty well. Most of the people they have come on stage usually speak pretty well. They're usually really passionate about their stuff. There were a couple here and there, a few awkward type moments, but nothing too bad.
Well, I mean, I thought it was good, but for me, it still comes back to, and maybe I blame the leaks, right? But a Splinter Cell, I wanted to see a Splinter Cell.
Yeah, because it ended with Assassins. We didn't see anything beyond that.
Well, and you knew, and that's kind of one of those things. Like you had seen Skull and Bones last year. You knew they were making an Assassin's Creed. Like a lot of those things. Well, it was cool to see them that you knew about.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I just feel like there's something for everybody at Ubisoft too.
Sure.
So.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the final.
Yeah, there's Sony was after that, which we talked about,
right.
And then next Tuesday, the morning, you had the
Nintendo E3 Direct, which again is a pre-recorded video.
Yeah.
So again, these things usually flow pretty well because it's all pre-recorded. I'll give my impression up front. It just felt like a normal Nintendo Direct. Usually with the E3 Directs in the past, they do them a little bigger. They do some crazy things. There was an episode one year where all the people were puppets.
Yeah.
And just crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, there really wasn't this one. It was more tame.
Yeah, Reggie came out and talked, the head of Nintendo of America, and then, of course, the guy behind the current Smash Brothers was talking a lot.
Sure.
There wasn't a whole lot of developer talk and things.
Well, and it really was focused on Smash Brothers, which, like, I was okay with that. And it that's I feel like maybe this has been the issue now with as the E3s this generation's gone on, was because at first there were so many more surprises, like this is coming now, this is coming, this is happening, that you can't continue to sustain that.
Right.
So it's like as gamers we go, well, we saw Metroid Prime 4 last year, like we have to see it.
Right.
But do we? Like we know they're making it. Like it didn't drop off. You know they're making a Pokemon. But again, it's like those are going to be at least 2019, more than likely 2019 games.
Right.
They have the two Pokemon Go, the Eevee and Pokemon,
Which they talked about a
Pikachu
little bit.
coming out.
They had a Pokemon event before this, so they kind of recapped that.
Yes.
I guess the biggest thing was they showed off the Pokeball.
Correct.
I forget what it was called.
It's like the controller.
Pokeball Plus controller.
Yeah.
And the big thing, and this is kind of underhanded, but the only way to get Mew in the game, the Pokemon Mew, is to buy the Pokeball controller because he's inside the Pokeball.
Gotcha.
And then you let him out in the game or whatever.
Interesting. Well, you know, I mean, I thought like for me, like I said, I thought the Smash Brothers, like it looks good. You know.
Yeah. About the last
ultimate
half of the video was dedicated to
yes,
Smash Brothers.
like, and it was good.
There's
like,
a lot of information.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
You know, and that is their big game. You just when you look at that, you take it back from last year. I mean, the difference was it was like a Mario Odyssey with. We get hyped, so it wasn't a bad conference, but it did not have the same level of announcements as it did last year.
Right. Probably the biggest announcements they talked about the new Fire Emblem.
Yes.
So that should get people excited.
But the only downside to that, though, too, right, was it was originally supposed to be 2018. They pushed it back to 2019.
Right.
And then, of course, too, as you mentioned, you know, Yoshi was not there.
Right.
So that was one, too, that also has been kind of maybe pushed back, or maybe it's just a different time. So we didn't know what happened to that.
Right. And they talked about like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is getting an expansion this
Yep.
year. Again, a lot of that sort of supporting existing games,
Correct.
which is great, but it's not like big, huge announcements.
Yes.
So Fortnite was now on the Switch. They talked about that.
Yep, it was available that day.
Right, which is always fun. They did talk about some indies that are already out on other platforms coming.
For me, though, the big one was the Mario Party. Was probably the biggest. Super Mario Party was probably their biggest kind of unknown.
Right.
It's coming out
October 5th.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that'll be. I hadn't been a fan of Mario Party game in a while.
Right.
I mean, after like Mario Party like '85, I kind of got a little like tired.
Yeah.
This one looks pretty interesting, just to kind of see the portability and some of the things you can do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good game to have. I mean, that's something to kind of add to it. But again, for me, like going back and we've talked about it, but I want to make sure there was no Bayonetta 3
Right.
at this conference, and you knew they're making it, and that was kind of one of those like, oh, I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And there was no touch of like Animal Crossing, which
No.
you look at a Nintendo Direct 2 months from now, we may get some of that.
Right.
But as of now,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they didn't talk about the new No More Heroes game either.
They didn't.
Which I was a fan of the old one. So yeah. So no. Again, kind of like the entire E3. No huge surprises. Some good information here and there. And if you're a big fan of Smash Brothers, tons of good information. The big thing, of course, they announced Ridley is a new playable character.
Yep.
Along with Daisy is a new character. And then the big thing is every single character.
yeah, there's like 65 characters.
Right, has ever been in Smash Brothers.
So,
will
I mean,
be
it
in
looks
this
neat.
one.
Yeah, and it is a new
And
game.
It's called Smash Brothers
Ultimate.
right?
Yep. So
Yeah,
I think they could have called it though, Nintendo. If you want to, you should have called it Smash Brothers, the kitchen sink.
right.
Like because it was like everything, and the
it
kitchen.
looks like every single stage ever featured and stuff like
Yes,
that.
everything.
And
yeah.
every stage is gonna have two versions, sort of the original like crazy version, and then like a competitive version where none of the crazy stuff happens, and it's the three platforms.
Sure.
So you just get the cool background basically.
Correct.
Without, yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's all in all, it was
So, and
exciting.
of course the show floor opened up where people got a lot of the hands-on with this stuff.
Yeah.
You learned some more. The big thing I would say, Cyberpunk 2077, which we talked about back in Microsoft.
Yeah, they actually showed.
They showed gameplay. It's not online. They showed it behind closed doors or whatever. But it's first person. That was the big thing. Everybody's used to The Witcher where it's third person. This is a first person.
Almost like a shooter.
Shooter style with a lot of RPG stuff going on.
Right.
Conversation, dialogue, all that kind of thing. Probably, it might get some slight Skyrim type vibes at first person, but
Sure.
still an RPG. And everything I've seen online, everybody who's seen it said it looks amazing, and that it looks super in depth.
But is that going to be this generation?
They supposedly said it is.
Okay.
They have said it is. What we'll see. But yeah, they've said it is. So same thing. Another PlayStation 1, Ghost of Tsushima looked really, really good. and apparently, again, behind closed doors, nobody got to play it, but someone was sitting there playing it while they were watching it, and they said it was running on a PS4 Pro. So again, this generation. So
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And that was something, supposedly, the demo that you saw at the Sony conference for Ghosts was just a side mission
Right.
Within the game.
Right.
So overall, we kind of touched on it, like, for me, like, one of the things I noticed, who do you think, if you had to say, who won E3 this year, who would you say?
It's weird because I would probably say Microsoft.
Okay.
And you can go watch our video. The reason it's weird is because I feel like they had the best conference overall. They showed the most, it flowed the best. They had maybe some of the bigger surprises, like with Devil May Cry and things like that.
Well, I would say the Sekiro. You had the Cyberpunk 2077.
Right.
The Devil May Cry 5.
Gears of War 5 looked good. The little Halo teaser. So there's a lot of stuff. The only reason I'm hesitant is because a lot of it wasn't necessarily exclusive to Microsoft.
Well, I'm trying to think though. That was the thing though that I noticed a lot this year. Just with all the conferences, so much of it was just video. Here's a video. It was like we were watching, like we went to go watch movie trailers.
Right.
It was just like trailer after trailer. And yes, you're going to get some of that, but some of these it was like, where's the gameplay?
Right.
And that was a little surprising this year.
Yeah. There was definitely less gameplay on stage, which for the most part worked. Oh, we didn't even talk about at the EA press conference the new Command & Conquer, which is probably my biggest disappointment about the EA press conference.
Yeah, the mobile.
Yeah, because I was a big fan of Command & Conquer back in the day, like the old Red Alerts and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a mobile game.
Correct.
It looks super simplified. And then in the middle of the EA press conference, they had these two guys come out, sit down at cell phones, and play a full match against each other. And it just was totally weird. And they had like an official shoutcaster there saying what was going on. Again, just totally interrupted the flow of that thing. Didn't need to see a full battle at the press conference. But part of it was they didn't announce till the very end that it was Command & Conquer. So it was like, ooh, look at this game. It's Command & Conquer. But whatever. That was probably my lowest point in the EA press conference. I would definitely say EA was probably the weakest of all the press conferences. But yeah, overall, I think I would go with Microsoft as having the best press conference.
Okay.
Do you agree or disagree?
No, so I would agree. So I'm torn those a little bit different because, I think if you look just at the conference, I think they had the best conference easily.
Yeah.
But if you look at games that were shown, like playable games, we ragged on Sony a lot, but it was good to see those games being played. We saw more of those games than we saw everywhere else. But again, their conference was clunky, and it kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen after that. I would say still probably Microsoft was probably the best overall, but just barely.
Right.
Because when you kind of take it away, yes, they showed a lot of the good third parties, which, some of the wow moments had some of the better things that you'd seen, but a lot of it, 2019 looks killer for Microsoft if all that stuff comes out.
Yeah, for sure.
But we don't know.
Right.
And like I said, Sony had some good stuff. Like some of the highest points was like watching the Last of Us 2 trailer. If you hadn't seen it, was phenomenal. I'm really stoked. Like Spider-Man looked really, really good.
Yeah.
Even as you mentioned, some of the Fallout 76s and some of those look really, really good. But there were only a handful of games where we really saw in depth. This is what you're going to see.
Right.
And most of the stuff that we were used to seeing, we didn't really see. So they weren't in a conference form. So for me, we're both Soul Calibur 6 fans. Yeah, they had it there, showed it there. But in the past, I feel like you would have, if you had maybe 2 or 3, or at least the 2 traditional conferences like they had been in the past, maybe that's something that you see at a Sony event, whereas they really didn't have that this year. So
right. Yeah, I saw Dead or Alive being played on the floor.
Yes,
that actually looked really good.
It does look good, and see, there were so many games that didn't get a spotlight.
Right. Some of these third-party titles and stuff that they got them, they were being demoed on the Sony stage out on the E3 floor, but they weren't in a press.
So what does this tell you? So do you think that, obviously they've already announced you get E3 next year, but it feels like E3 is losing its importance a little bit. Because the reason why I say that, and this is just because, obviously, I'm going to say this because I think so far, I think God of War is probably the game of the year.
Right.
But arguably, the only game that could potentially is going to give it a run for its money wasn't even there. And granted, they're typically not there, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming. We know it's going to be good, and it's
Yeah.
It's like you don't have to be there now.
Well, and I feel like it's a double-edged sword because I feel like E3's popularity started to fade.
Mm-hmm.
They tried some different things. But then I feel like with online streaming and all this, they can stream the conferences, they can do live from the floor, so it makes it really easy to reach your customers. I can just tune in whenever I want.
Sure.
Anybody can do it at work. I have friends who are listening to things at work, stuff like that. It makes it really easy. On the other hand, because of streaming and things, you don't need to do it at E3. You can do it whenever you want. That's what Rockstar
exactly.
does. Rockstar releases their trailer on YouTube, and everybody in the world can see it now, versus having to wait for a trade show.
And it becomes its own event.
Right.
And that's the one thing. The reason why I bring that up, just because I wonder as we continue to go through, because it becomes more of an event, and that's the news that day is this is what came out.
Right.
Whereas with that, there's so much. It really is like overload.
Right.
And at the end of the day, most of the games, which is kind of scary, and every time there's an off year, every once in a while, right? It happens. But a lot of the games that were shown are all 2019 games.
A lot of them.
Like they're not this year.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I mean, yeah. So you agree Microsoft's probably the best overall?
Yeah, I would have said Microsoft, but it was bare.
Close to
I mean, to me, in this, like, to me, none of them were great.
Right.
So they were the best of the worst.
Yeah.
Is the way I saw it.
Right. And I mean, I think I have a higher opinion slightly overall of everything, and I would actually almost tie Sony and Ubisoft for second. Ubisoft did bring a lot. They had a lot of variety. Bethesda probably behind them just because of their awkwardness and stuff, but they did show a lot. And then I guess Nintendo and Square Enix with their pre-recorded videos, and then EA's last. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you overall. It was an okay E3. There was some good stuff, some disappointing stuff, but just no big stuff,
Right.
So.
Yeah, and we'll see. And that's and it's also one of those years too because there was no hardware.
Right.
Like last year, the Xbox One X, there were a lot of different things. It does make you mention, because we briefly talked about it, but they mentioned, hey, we're working on kind of the next thing. It makes you wonder, kind of that shadow is, when is the next generation really coming?
Right.
Because it looks like, because the reason why I say that, and then we'll wrap, but it really seems like Nintendo's like, not full steam ahead. We actually got a system that's great. Like we're just now beginning.
Yeah, it'll be several years before Switch gets replaced.
And both Sony and Microsoft are almost kind of saying, well, this is our next 2 years. We're already thinking long term beyond that. It's like it was almost kind of like a transition year. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I do think we've still got a couple years at least. I think 2020 is the earliest we'll see a new system, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, so I mean, it's still fun. It's still exciting to see all these games.
Oh yeah, a lot of stuff.
My pre-order list has grown a lot. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the wrap up of E3. I'm sure there'll be some more news coming from the next few weeks about a lot of these games. We'll cover that as it comes up. But let us know in the comments if there's anything you guys are really excited for from E3.
Yeah, what did y'all think? Do you agree with us? Were we
What's
all
your favorite
based?
conferences?
Was it Nintendo? Was it Sony all the way? Was was
let
it
us know.
Devolver? Was Devolver the conference this year?
Yeah, we didn't even
Let
talk
us
about
know.
that, but I will just say this: the Devolver conference thing was definitely better than it was last year. This year they actually announced some things.
But last year was like a dumpster fire, so you're like, this one wasn't on fire.
But anyways, yeah. So let us know what your biggest disappointments were. If you're disappointed, no Splinter Cell or no Final Fantasy VII or whatever.
Yeah.
But otherwise, like and subscribe. And yeah, we're gonna get back into the flow of normal podcasts. I think we may settle into like an every other week routine. We're still figuring all that out. But yeah, stay tuned to Searching for Players for more good gaming stuff. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Later.